Hello guys and welcome. Today we are going to create this Q&A website using Django where we are going to learn a lot of the basic stuff to help you start in your own project. So for the demo we are going to basically have this website where we can basically ask any questions. Users are going to be able to also reply to the questions. We are going to have this nice comment thread as well. This is where we respond here on the questions, and yeah, we are going to have a home page with all of the questions. And also users will need to have an account in order to create questions or respond to the questions. As you can see, we're going to create this login page and this register page as well. Okay, so now guys that we know what we are going to build, let's get to code. Okay guys, so here we have our new Django project created. So basically we added this my website project here with all of the settings, and we also created this main application where we're going to basically add all of the logic for this project. So the first thing that I want to do is go ahead and add this app, this main app, into our install apps inside the settings. Okay, so it is main. So now we can close this. Second, I want to add our path to the URLs of this main app. So I'm gonna go ahead and create these URLs because Django doesn't create this for us first. So I'm gonna do that really quick, and I'm gonna add a new path over here. I'm just gonna leave it blank because we don't want to have like another or like a route parent over here, so I'm just gonna leave it like that. And for this I'm gonna use this include function that we use to add the URLs for an app. So I need to also include this include function from the Django URLs, so here, and I change the name to main. Okay, so now we add the URLs. We can close these settings for now. Okay, now these URLs, we don't have at the moment any views, but I'm gonna create just a quick home page view in order to see if this is actually working fine. So I'm just gonna return render. Here I pass the request of the first argument. Here I pass a template name because I don't have any template created yet. I'm gonna pass nothing there, and then I need a context. In this context, if you don't know, basically it's the way that Django uses I don't know, to pass information to the template. So okay, I'm gonna just pass simple hello world text there. I pass this context over here, and now let's go ahead and create our template. So basically inside our application we create a new folder called templates, and here we can just add our home page.html file. So I'm gonna pass an h1. This is going to say hello, and this is gonna be our title. Okay, we can save it. This title is going to be this one over here. So here we just pass the exact name of our template over here, and in our URLs first we need to import the path from Django URLs. So we import path, and we also need to import our views. Okay, so basically these views are going to be all of the views that we created over here. So now we do kind of like an export over here. All right, and we add an index. So basically we leave this blank. We pass our view, so in this case views dot home page, and we add a name over here, so that means it's easier for us to like make redirects and all that kind of stuff. Now we can refresh and we can see now the home page is working just fine. Okay, so one thing that I wanna fix really quick is that I don't like this naming format over here. I like to have everything lowercase, so I'm gonna leave that home page and home page, because basically we are gonna need this home page to render all of our questions. So yeah, we can leave this like this. Now we refresh, should be working the same as before. Okay, so now let's go ahead and start working in the models. Okay guys, so now we can close these views for now, and we can go ahead and open the models file over here. And for this project we're going to create two models, and we're going to reuse the user model that we have from Django by default. The only difference is that in this case, for a normal user, it won't have the privilege to access our administration page. But yeah, anyways, we can create our first model, that it is going to be our question model. So basically, um, we do that by creating a new class. We pass an author over here. This is going to be a relationship, one-to-many relationship to our user model. So we use foreign key. We pass the user model. We need to import this in a bit, but for now we can just pass the user. Okay, so we won't allow null on this field, and on delete mode is going to be basically model that cascade. So we need to also import Django contribution auth models, and we import the user model, because we also need to do the relationship later in our next model. So we have our author for the question. We can also now pass the title. So the title is going to be a sharp field with a max length of basically 200, and the null is going to be false. The next one is our body, that it is going to have the question itself. Oh, it's going to explain the question. So because we don't want like a limit on the length of this, we're going to use a text field, and we make the null value to be, or the null verification to be false. Okay, so now we pass also a created at, and this is going to be a date time field. Basically we use auto now at true, and our updated at models, and in this case we use auto now to be true. And with this we will have now our model ready for the questions. So one thing really quick to do is create this str function. Basically this later will work when we are in our administration, in our Django administration. So we can open really quick this, and basically we are going to return the field that we want to display like in here, when we have our model, the value that we want in this case. So basically I'm just going to return for the question the title of the question, and this is pretty much. Now let's go ahead and create our second model. In this case it is going to be our response model actually. And here we are going to assign this also an user. Okay, so in this case it is a one-to-many relationship as well. Basically I think we can copy this first one over here and just change the name really quick. Now we also need an actual question. This question is uh, I think it explains itself, but basically is uh, the response or the question that we are adding, that we are responding in this case. So models, it is also one to many. We use the question model that we just created over here. Let the null to be false. On delete is going to be uh, okay, and um, yeah, I think this is pretty much okay. So now let's add a parent also relationship, and this parent relationship is going to relate to itself. So basically this will allow us to basically have like the comment thread uh, that you saw on the demo. So for this we're going to create a parent with the relationship of foreign key to itself. So basically we add just the self string there. Okay, so make this false, then null, the blank true, and the on delete is going to be cascade as well. Okay, and then we have our body. In this case it is going to be the response that the user adds. Okay, so this is a text field, so new false, and then we have our created and updated at. We can just add that there, and we can also define an str function over here, and in this case we are going to use the body. Here we can use actually a relationship like self dot question dot title or something like that, but we are gonna leave our body for now. Okay, perfect. So now okay, so I think with this it is okay for us to start creating the migrations, because at this moment this won't work at all. So for this we're going to use Python 3 manage.py, and here we can uh, type the make migrations command. Okay, so as you can see we created the two models, then we basically make the migration itself. So we use migrate. So if everything is okay, it created our migrations. We can see here our migration, and this is fine. If we refresh our admin page here, we won't be able to see anything. Okay, first I forgot to run the server, so we run the server. Okay, so now that the server is running, we can refresh our browser, and here in our administration we can see that we don't see these models that we just created. So in order to add the models over here, we just need to add the models or register that that is the actual word. We register models into our admin website here. So for this is really simple. First we import our models file, so import the models over here, and we just use admin. This admin is from this admin function over here. We use admin site and register, and we basically register our question model. Okay, we can copy paste this. This is going to be our response model. Now we can refresh, and now we see the two models. We got the question and responses, and let's just go ahead and create a really quick question. So the author, we select that. Over here we can use this question that I had before. We can use test one, and we can save this. As you can see, we are using the title here to display like this preview, and we add that on this str function. So if I remove this, AI refresh, we can see that we get this question object. So Okay, perfect. And the response, basically we can add the user that it is responding to the same question, but that's okay. And now if we see the question here, we can select the question that we just created. The parent, we don't see anything because we haven't created any response yet. So here we can say, we can add anything we want there, basically. Okay, so it says not null constraint. Okay, I see. um so let me see. Okay, yeah, I see. The problem here is that you can see we added null to be false for our parent, so we need it needs to be true. In this case, we need to go ahead and make the migration again. So basically we can use make migration. Okay, we make migration. Okay, so you can see we alter or we updated the field. Now we can actually migrate. So now we can go ahead and run the server again. Now it is running. We refresh. Okay, let's just add a new one. I think this, no, it didn't add any response there, so let's just go ahead and do that again. Okay, so now this, I don't know whether we want to add there. We can save now. We can see the response there. And now if we try to add another response, we select the same question, but now we can add the parent, so that will be like a reply to the to this response. So we can save it and we can add another one, and the replay will be now this one. And that's basically how we create our comment thread, or how we are going to create the comment thread for this project. Perfect. So now we can close this and this as well, and let's go to the views page, and let's start working on the home page. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is to display all of the questions here in the home page. So for that, first we are going to import our question model from the models file. So we import that like this, and we are just going to create a new variable called questions, and here we are going to basically apply this query. Okay, so with this we will have all of the questions, but I want to add this order by, so we can get all of the questions by the order the questions actually by the created date in descending order. So basically, like, the new questions are going to be on top. Okay, so with this we have now the questions. We can go to the context, basically create a new key called questions, and here we're going to pass these questions query. So now we can go ahead and open our homepage template. We can remove this for now, and we are going to start by first looping through all of the questions. So we use the for tag that we have with Django. We use question in questions. Okay, and we close that here. And now with this we will have access to the questions, and we can test this by just printing the question that title. And okay, it is each one, and we now refresh here the page, and we see this question that we have in our questions database. Perfect. So now let's just add some structure to this. Okay, so basically we are going to have all of the questions inside a div. Here we're going to name this question list item, and we close this div. Perfect. So now here we add a link in sorry, and here we pass the href. Okay, so for the href, basically later we are going to create a new page. In this case we're going to name it question, where we are going to display basically the question with all of the um, comments and responses. So for this we use the URL tag from Django. Here we pass the name of the page. In this case we haven't created, like I said before, but in a second we're going to create this so it works. And here we are going to have a reference, and the reference the parameter for the page is going to be the ID. So we pass question.id, and we also close the tag. Okay, so we are going to wrap everything inside this a tag, and now we are going to basically print the title and the author name. So for this we're going to add a class called question is item title. Okay, and inside here we're going to basically pass the question that title, and then we're going to have something similar, and in this case this is going to be question is item dash author, and here we are going to basically make reference to the username for the author. So we use question author dot username. So this author basically it is going to be the user model, so we can access this by just passing author dot username. So we save this and we get this error because like I said before, we haven't created this question page. So let's do that really quick so we get rid of this error. We will need to first create a question page here, and here we are going to have an ID, and this ID basically is going to be the question ID in order to render. But for now we are not going to do any of that, so we are just going to return none. And if we go to the URLs, because we need to add this over here, basically we just add a new path, and in this case it needs to be question slash, in this case we're going to have the ID parameter on the URL, and this is the name, all right, that we need to pass also in here. Okay, so now we pass the view. In this case it is inside views, the question page, and the name needs to be question. Perfect. So now one thing to know here is the name. This is the name that we are going to pass in here. Okay, so now we save this and we get this this page rendering all of the questions. And I'm just gonna add a new question here really quick, and I'm gonna go to Stack Overflow and just search for I don't know, like the first question that I see here. Okay, just gonna copy this and paste that in the title, and I'm gonna also copy just really quick short description for the question. Okay, so we save this, and if we refresh the page we see now the new question here on top. Okay, perfect. So now we are going to work in the layouts for the pages, and in this case in the templates folder I'm gonna create a new folder called layouts, and inside the layouts I'm gonna create a new file called page.html. Basically this page is going to be rendered on all of the pages of our application. So in this case I'm gonna use an HTML structure here. Perfect. And here I'm gonna use a Django tag that basically allow us to extend basically this on all of our pages and replace the content inside this. So basically we are going to pass here the block, and here we just put a name, and in this case the default basically it is using content, so we use that and we end the block. And basically with this we will be able now to go to any page and extend this, and we use extends. Okay, I'm gonna type everything, and here we need to look for the page layout. So I'm gonna go to layouts, page.html, and with this we will have extend the page HTML. So basically, if I refresh this, we don't see anything, because basically we are creating a duplicate of this page, and in order to display something, it needs to be inside this block content. So we can just initialize something like this here. Okay, and inside this we can pass this this for loop that we did for the questions. So now we will be able to see basically the questions again, and if we go to the view source, we can see now that we have this structure, and with this we can basically reuse this same structure for all of the pages. That's cool. Perfect. Okay guys, so now I would like to add our CSS file that we are going to use for the project. And yeah, I'm gonna first going to create the file. So inside the main application, in this case, I'm gonna create a new folder called static. Okay, and inside this static, I'm gonna create a new folder also called CSS, and in here I'm gonna create the file for the CSS. And in this project, I'm just gonna use a single file, so with this will be enough. So the first thing to do with Django is to load the static. So we use this tag load static, and here we just add the simple link for the CSS. So we do link real style sheet. The type is going to be text/CSS, and the href in this case is a little bit different, but it is using also a tag from Django. So we use static. Basically, it is going to give us the URL for the static folder, and inside here we pass the path. So CSS, okay, and here it is style.css. And with this, also we need to close the link. We can refresh, and we won't be able probably to see this because we need to restart the server. But before we do that, one thing that I also like to do with this CSS file, it is to add some kind of hash after the style.css, because it has happened to me before that sometimes when I restart the server and try to like change something on the CSS, it won't display the changes here. So I don't know if it is a cache thing or something, but I saw this solution on Stack Overflow and it seems to work. So for this, we are just going to add a Unix timestamp. So we use now, and here we pass this syntax. Okay, let me see if I'm doing this correctly. I think I'm not. Okay, so first thing is that we need to have this outside the this tag of the static stack, and we need to close this as well here. So now let's just refresh, and let me just remove that space over there. We get now this okay, I forgot to remove this also. Okay, so now we get the timestamp over here, and yeah, basically this this number is going to change. Let me just refresh. It is going to change every time we refresh the page. So let me just go ahead and restart the server really quick so we can see that our CSS is being added on the website. Now we can refresh again, and now we don't see any errors. And let's just try to add something on the CSS. Okay, so now we're going to close that, also this and the URLs as well. Okay, so let's just open the style CSS and let's do some basic or add some basic colors to the page over here. Okay, so we are going to start by adding the font family for our project. So we are going to use this font family for everything basically. I want to add this green color for the background, the one that you saw on the demo. Okay, and if we refresh, we see this green background. Cool. Now what I like to do it is to add the border box for the project. So we're going to use box sizing. So I'm gonna use before and after. I think it doesn't matter the order on these two. So border box. Oh, it is box sizing. Sorry, border box. Okay. So now let's go ahead and open our page HTML. And if you remember on the demo, we use some kind of card for the content. So for this, I'm gonna create a new wrapper here for our content in all of the pages basically. And I'm gonna add this new div over here. Okay. And now in our CSS, we can add some properties here. So we're going to first add a max width of 100 pixels. Okay, add the margin for me, so 60 pixels on top and the bottom, and for the left and right we use auto to center this. Okay, so basically we have a result like this for now. Let's go ahead and add some paddings into the content over on this. Add some border radius also as well of 20 pixels because we're going to add a background color of white. So now I would like to add also some box shadow, and I saw this shadow on, I don't remember the name of the website, but I like the color of this, so I'm just gonna use that as well. And now we get this card over here, and if we make this bigger we can see that it is on the center and it is having or respecting the 800 pixels on the width. Okay guys, so now that we are in the home page, let's just go ahead and add the rest of the styles for this. But first, in the home page, I would like to wrap this into into a div so we can have more control on the styles of this. So basically, inside the block content, I'm gonna add a new div. In this case, I'm gonna name this page. Okay, so I'm just gonna close that here. Okay, and I would like to add a title on this. Just gonna use the h1 tag. Okay, I'm gonna name this title because basically we're going to reuse this title for all of the pages pretty much, I think. So I'm gonna use all questions as the title. Okay, so I'm just gonna save that and see how it looks. Perfect. So now let's just go ahead and center this text, and let's add some styles also on each of these questions. So the first thing here on the page, let's just display this text, and let's use the direction to be column. Okay, so now we can start first with the question list item. Okay, I'm gonna add that over here, and I think I'm just gonna add a margin bottom of 20 pixels. Let's see how this looks for now. Perfect. Okay, so now let's just go ahead and add, I think we can start by with the title over here. Okay, so I want to get rid of that blue color, so I'm just going to use black color. the font size. Okay, so we're going to change this to 18 pixels. Okay, the font weight 900, um, and the margin. Okay, in this case I'm going to remove the margin for this for the text over here. Okay, so we get this result. Let's just go ahead and also style the author. Okay, so for the author we're just going to add a color of gray, sorry, light gray. Okay, and I think we also need to remove the margins on this. Let's see how it looks. Okay, great. One thing to add here, it is just add by. Okay, perfect. So now let's just remove this text decoration here. So I'm gonna do that for all the A tags. So text decoration to be none. Okay, cool. So now let's add some hover effect here on the question. So we can do it on the question list item A hover, because I want to update the A. So I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna set text decoration to be underline, and I want the color to be black, because if we don't add the color, it will add like some blue color on the text decoration. So with this we have this effect. Cool. Okay guys, so now the last thing to do for the home page, it is adding the CSS styles for this title. So we can do that here below the page, and I want to change the margins to be 20 on the top, center 30 pixels, center. Okay, and I want to use a font weight of 900. Perfect. So now we have the home page ready, and I think this is pretty much all we need to do. The link for this is not going to work because we are returning none on the question page, if you remember, but we will come back on this later. For now, I think the next thing will be to work on the navbar here. So yeah, let's do that first by creating a new template, and basically we can call this navbar.html. So yeah, okay, so let's first create an app with the class of we're going to use navbar as well for the class. We close it. Now inside this we are going to have basically two menus. We are going to have one here for the left side and the other one on the right. So let's just go ahead and create the one on the left. So we are going to use a div, and we're going to name this main menu, and inside here we are just going to use an ul. Okay, and we are just going to add a single menu here. So use li ahref, and we are just going to use the URL tag from Django as well. So I'm going to use URL here, the name of the page. In this case, we are going to go to index here. We just close this as well, and here the name, it is going to be questions. Okay, so basically we close the A and the LI. We can refresh and see. Okay, so right now we are not going to be able to see this because I forgot to add that inside our project. So I'm just going to really quick add this over here. So to include something, we use the include tag. So use include, and the name of the template. In this case, it is navbar.html. We can close that, also this page, refresh, and now we see here the questions menu. So now let's just go ahead and create the second menu. And this menu, basically, it is going to be a single menu, but it is going to have two different options. So let's see how that works. Okay, so basically we're going to have the normal UL in here, but we want to render two different things depending on the authentication of the user. So basically, if we are authenticated, we render two menus, one to ask a question and the other one to log out. And if we are not authenticated, we're going to render a login and register menu. So for that, Django has already the user information here on the template. We don't need to pass that on the context. So we use if the user is authenticated, all right, we render something inside this. Okay, then we use the else, we render the other menu, and here we can basically close the end if. As you can see, the syntax is really simple. It is a normal if. So yeah, and say here we are just going to, I'm gonna copy and paste this menu because it's basically the same, but for this we're going to use ask question, and the next one it is going to be logout. Okay, so now for the href we are going to leave this basically we're not going to add any URL right now, because if we do, then it will give us an error. We want to test this before doing that. So I'm just gonna add here the login and the register. Let's see how this works. Okay, so I messed something. Let me see. So we have the if. Okay, I need to add this. Okay, let me check. Okay, so now we see this ask question logout menu here because basically we are authenticated here on the Django administration. So let's just go ahead and log out of this and see now the next menu. Perfect. So now let's just go ahead and add some CSS to this. So basically we can do that on the style CSS, and we can do that below the main. Okay, so perfect. We are going to first remember that we add this navbar. So let's just go ahead and add here, display this into flex. The flex direction is going to be raw. The justify counter space between and our padding on this, it is going to be 0 and 24 for the right and left side. Okay, and I also want to add this a border button of 1 pixel solid and use light gray for this. So now let's just go ahead and refresh this and see how it looks. So let's just go ahead and start adding some styles and fixing some things here on the menus. So one thing that I like to do here with the UL, okay, so we can do it here. Basically, it is first we are going to make the list style to be none, and we are also going to remove paddings on here. So we can see this now. Perfect. Now we can go to the navbar. Let's go ahead and add something for the main menu. Okay, so for the main menu, I think we can go to the ULLI and A because we want to add some styles to this menu here. So we are going to add a color of black, and the font weight that I want to use for the menu is 700. Okay, so let's just go ahead and refresh this. Okay, perfect. Now I want to add a hover effect on this. I'm gonna use the same, but I'm gonna add the hover, and I want just to add a text decoration here, and I want to add underline. Cool. Okay, so now let's just go ahead and do basically the same thing for the user menu. So here, user menu, ULLI, and I want to change something here. I want to display this inline. Okay, because now here we have two menus, and you can see here I want this on the same line, so we use inline. I want to make the margin left to be 12 pixels. Okay, so now it's looking pretty nice. So I think we can basically do the same thing with this. Let me see if we don't break something. Okay, so now we add the same structure here, but I want to add I as well, and we get the same effect. And I want to do the same for the hover effect. Okay, let's just save it, and we get the same effect. Okay, so the links, remember, are not gonna work for now. Okay, so let's just go ahead and add a register page for now to start seeing some results here. So for that, we can close, I think, these two files, and let's just add a new view here on the views, and let's just I think we can add this on the top. Let's define a new view called register page user request, and we are going to return, in this case, render. And with render, remember, we pass a request. Now the name of the template, we don't have that register page, but we are going to do that in a second. And here we pass also a context that we need to create as well. So let's just create this. Okay, so now we have that register page over there. Let's just go ahead and create a new template. Okay, and let's do the same thing that we did with the home page. Okay, so we extend to the page layout, and we add this block. Okay, so I'm gonna copy all of this. Could have copied everything, I don't know why I didn't, but anyways, I think we can remove this. Okay, perfect. And instead of all questions, here we can use register, and I want to initialize a form that we're going to have later, but for now I'm just gonna add like a blank form for now, and then later we can start adding all of the fields. So just really quick here, the method is going to be a pause, in the action I'm gonna leave it like that because I want to make the action on this same view for the post request. So just going to save this. I'm gonna go to URLs. I'm going to define a new path, so you can just copy and paste this. Okay, I'm gonna create the register page. This is going to be a register page, and I'm gonna call this register. So now in our navbar, remember that we don't have that here, so let's just copy everything, the syntax for the URL tag, and here we use register because we are using that name here on our path. So let's just refresh. We don't get the error, so this is probably working, and we see now the register page over here. Okay, so now let's just go ahead and move to the form creation part. we're going to start with our register page, and for this we're going to use Django forms. So to start, it's really simple. We can go ahead and create a new file called forms in our main applications, forms.py. And from here, what I'm going to do is for the register page, I'm going to use the user creation form from Django, and I'm just going to customize that a little bit. So yeah, let's just go ahead and first add that form into this file. So we use Django auth forms, and we import the user creation form. We also need to I think with this we can start. So let's just add our first class. So for the forms, we create classes, and I'm gonna call this form register user form. I'm gonna pass here the user creation form. That it is this one that we just imported. Okay, and here I'm gonna use class meta, and I need to pass here a model for this form. So basically, I need to import also the user the user model. So I'm gonna use from Django auth.models. I'm gonna import the user model. So this is a really nice way from Django to add all kind of validations into the forms. So yeah, for now I'm just gonna pass here all of the fields. Later we're going to customize this just to a couple of fields because we don't want to validate each one of the fields. So for now, yeah, I'm gonna pass all and show the default form, this user creation form. So to do that, it is really simple. We go to the views, and from here we can basically just do from forms. We can import the register user form that we just created. So in our register view over here, we can just define a form, and we make the call for this register user form, and we can pass that in the context. So really simple stuff. Okay, so now we have the form here. Now we can access this form from the register page. So for now, what I'm gonna do is just to display the form, and basically it is going to create okay, it didn't create that. It says the model form has the model class specified. Okay, let me see. Okay, I added the user, I add the meta. Okay, the fields, it's all fields. Okay guys, so I realized the problem here is that I need to use equals here for the user. So yeah, I'm just gonna refresh, and here we can see basically all of the fields that we have by default, but we don't want that. We don't want, for example, to show this staff status or any of these roles or permissions for users. So yeah, we want to keep this really simple. So the first thing that we want to do here is first adding a limit here on the fields. So I want to use the username. I also want to use the email. Here we have password 1 and password 2 for the confirmation. So now we can save this. In our register, I don't want to render all of the form. I just want to render some fields. So for that, we are going to make a custom integration. So I want to wrap all of the fields inside a new class. So in this and we add a class. I'm gonna call this field wrapper. Okay, and for this I'm gonna use a label to add the label that I want, and the form, the for, sorry, this is the ID for each field, and in this case I'm gonna print first the email. I don't know if I added the email in the forms. Yes, I did. Okay, perfect. So here I'm gonna use form. Remember, we have access to this because we are passing that on the view. We use form email, and we use ID for label. Basically, using this email gives us access to the ID for that, and already the ID, it is already uh, being added for this user creation form, so you don't have to worry about that. You can just here close that and add the email and close also the label. Now to display the input, use form.email. And now one thing that I want to do is to add errors, any errors that we have for this specific field. So we use span, want to add a class of type error, and here I want to pass the email error, so we use form email.errors, and we can close now span. We can refresh, and now we can see that we have this email over here. So now we're going to do the same thing for the username, password 1 and password 2. Okay, so we can copy and paste this 3 more times. The second one is going to be for the username. I'm just going to use username for each field, and here I'm going to pass username. Now for the password, we just change to password 1. Okay, the name needs to be the same as these ones over here. Okay, password 1. Okay, this is password 1 and password 1, and here we pass the label of password. Now for password 2, okay, same thing, and here we change confirm password. We can use uppercase there. We refresh, and now we see this form. Okay, so now I would like to come here and add the field, or not the fields, but the form errors that are not related to one of these fields. So for that, we can do basically a check here using if. We check if form non-field errors. Okay, we can close this, and if. Okay, and basically okay, let me see, I wanna add a new div with the class name of form errors. Okay, cool, and here I'm gonna pass span class error as well to apply the same style that we are gonna use in here. And here when I use form non-field errors, and I want to get that as UL, so basically we're going to get a UL list of each error. So we're going to have an li for each error, so we basically print that as UL, and this should do the job for now. Now we can do also we can try to add the submit button. So we use type submit value, in this case register. We're going to add a new class with the name of submit button. We can close this and refresh the page. So right now if I try to register, it won't do anything because we haven't added any logic in here, but we are going to do that later. First, let's just go ahead and add first some CSS styles on this. So first thing here I want to do is just to add a new class. I want to name this register form. Okay, and I also want to add a new class with this page that it is going to be called register page. We can save this and go to our styles, and in here we can first add I think we can start with our new register page. This can be done just after the page. And here one thing that I want to do just to center this thing, but I also want to add a minimum width of 50% and a max width of 50%. Okay, so right now it doesn't make that much sense, but you'll see later. We want this on the center. We want to have this. We want to have these two have like a width and a specific width. So yeah. Now I think we can go ahead and start working with our register form. Okay, let me just go back here, and we can add that here. And for the register form, we're going to add a width of 100. So not that much of a change there, but that's perfect. So now let's just go ahead and start working with the field wrapper. So you just add some extra space here. Okay, so for this I want to display this on flex. The flex direction for this is going to be a column, and I want to add some space between each field. So I'm going to use margin bottom 20 pixels. Okay, so we get this result. Now let's just go ahead and okay, thing is that if I save this, it removes the space that we just added. So I'm going to use a new field wrapper, and we're going to style our labels. Okay, so for this we're going to use a font size of 20 pixels, a font weight of 600. Okay, and now we are going to transform the text to be uppercase, and I want to add a margin between this and the input, so we use margin button and we add 10 pixels. Cool, so now let's just save it anyways, see how it looks. Perfect. So now let's just work on the input. So use field wrapper input. Okay, and this input basically it is this form that email or username or password. So for this we are going to add a margin bottom of 6 pixels, and I want to also the border to be 1 pixel, solid and light gray, and I want to have this a minimum height of 40 pixels. Cool, now we have this result. Perfect. And now I want to work on adding some styles for the errors. So basically for the error we are going to have a font size of 14 pixels, and the color for this is going to be red. Okay, not this. Cool. Now we have also here a new field that it is called non-field, not non-form errors. So okay, I don't know what I'm doing. Let's just add that here. Basically, when I was testing this add like a weird margin, or not actually no add, it doesn't have like a margin, so I'm gonna add a margin of 20 pixels, because basically the error it is going to be in here. and it is going to be close to the register. I want to have a margin between these errors and the register. Okay, and now one thing to know is that when we get these errors, we get this in a uh, UL class with the name of error list. So one thing that I want to do here is just add that here, and this is lowercase. Basically, this error list, I want to remove the margins of this error list. You can go ahead and test that, but I already tested and add some margins there, so we just remove those with this. So now let's just go ahead and start working with this submit button. So let's just copy that. Okay, I think I removed it here. Control C. Okay. So let's just use display block for this. The width that I want for this is 120 pixels. Okay, the height 40 pixels. I want to remove the borders that we have at the moment. I'm gonna use none. Okay. The border radius, it is going to be 20 pixels. Okay. I want a background color of black and the color. Okay. And the color to be white on the text. And this is, if I leave it like that, we get this. Okay. I didn't close this. You see. Okay, now we get this. I want to center now this, and also you can see the cursor. I want to have this as a pointer, so I want to margin 0 auto to center. I want the cursor to be pointer. Cool. So now we get this, and I think now it is time to work on customizing this a little bit from the registered form. So one of the things that I want to do is to add some placeholders to this, and if I refresh, you can see that the username, it is the first that get focused here, so I want the email to be the first one. So yeah, we're going to fix that, and so do that. This is really simple. We here in the forms.py, we have access to something called widgets. Okay, and from here basically we can access to each field with the name. So in this case I want to access the email, and here I need to pass this the type of input. So in this case we need to import forms from Django. So basically use this import. Okay, and this will give us access to the forms properties. So the email, it is a email input type, and inside this email input type we can see that we have some attributes that we can update. So we can basically have access to this input itself and add some things. So for example, here I want to make the email required because I realized that this thing doesn't seem to be required. I'm just gonna add that. I also want to add the placeholder, remember, so we do that from here. I want to use here just this as an example.com. Okay, and I want to also add the autofocus here, so I'm just gonna make this to be true. We can save this and see now that we have the placeholder, and the first field to get focus is email. So we are going to do basically something similar to the username, but for the username, okay, For the username, we don't need the require because we have that in the autofocus. We don't want that as well. So I'm just gonna put here Lisa Mora for this. Okay, I refresh and we see now the placeholder there. Now for the passwords, this is a little bit different. I was trying to like do some research on this and I didn't find like a good answer on this, but basically for password and for the password 1 and 2 we cannot do this from here for the widgets, but there is a solution for this. Basically here we just define the init function, so you don't need to understand all of this because I don't even understand it, but basically from here we can use super to initialize the method that we have here, or like the default initialization from here. Use register user form, so this one over here. Use self and we pass init, and here we pass the arguments, and with this yeah, you don't need to worry about this. This is like the we can say a normal initialization that we do with this, but the important thing to do it is changing or getting access to the fields for the password 1 and 2 and change that. So we use self fields, and from here basically we can access to any field. So the same thing that we're doing here, we can do it with the email or other basically any other fields from here. So we use widget attributes, and here we pass an object and we use placeholder, and here we can just pass password. Let's just save this and see if this works. As you can see, basically we change it here, and for the password 2 we do the same thing. So we just change this, and here we pass confirm password for the placeholder. And yeah, this is pretty much all we need to do to customize a simple form with the widgets. We can do pretty much all the customization for the inputs. I believe we can add some validations and more stuff in here, but this is some of the basic stuff, with the exception of the password 1 and 2 that we can do it from here. And there is also a lot of configuration that we can do on this init function. But yeah, for now we're gonna leave it like this, and now we can close these forms and the styles and think this register as well, and start actually creating our user when we submit this form, because at the moment this is not working. The validation it is working here, as you can see the email, but for example you say that we pass code in venue, that code in venue, this is not going to work. I think the validation it is going to work here on the passwords. Let me see. I hit refresh. Okay, so it is saying that this is an email. Okay, so here we did a mistake. Let me just go ahead and fix that. So for this is a text input, not an email input. So let's just refresh this. Okay, and now we get this. Let's just try to add something here really quick. I think we're going to get like 2 errors. No, I don't think we are gonna get error because we haven't initialized any of these. But yeah, just gonna test this. As you can see, we get this forbidding error. Okay, so yeah, we're going to fix that. We're going to add this valid verification. So yeah, let's just go ahead here on the register, and here on the form before adding the fields, and here we add a new tag, tsrf token. Basically this will allow us to send like a token for security reasons and all of that stuff. You don't need to worry about that. Django does that for us. So we just add this over here. And with this, we won't get the 403 error anymore. And we can basically see the values that we pass here on this email. So to test this really quick, let's just go ahead and say if the request.method. Okay, so we are doing also this on the register page, just in case it is equals to post. Okay, we just print the request dot post. So we save that. I believe we are gonna be able to see that from here. So I'm just gonna close this really quick. Okay, so let's just refresh. Okay, I'm just gonna pass anything. Okay, I'm gonna hit register, and here we can see that we get the query dictionary with the token that we added there, the email, the username, password 1, password 2. So now it is time for us to start creating the user. Okay, so to create a new user, first we need to validate the form and pass also the data into the form. So we're going to add this in a try catch here. So I want to print here in case that we get an error or something. So yeah, I'm gonna initialize a new form with the same form, register form, but I want to pass the data that we just saw on the console. So we use request.post for that. And here Django has a form that is valid. So this is form, no forms. Okay, basically with this we can check if the data we are passing is valid or not. So here we can say that if it is valid, we can do form.save, and this will create a new user for us basically. And the reason for that it is because our form it is connected to the user model, and yeah, that's the cool thing about this Django forms, that it will do that for us. And with this basically I believe we didn't do anything wrong. We can go ahead and test this. So I'm gonna just refresh the page. I'm gonna create a new test user, test one. Okay, add example test one, and test one as the password as well. So yeah, no, maybe what I can do before doing this is trying to get an error to see the error messages, because we didn't get a chance to do that before. So yeah, I'm just gonna replace this here because this is our super user, basically, or admin user. So yeah, I'm gonna type two different passwords here as well to get some errors and see how this looks. So if I hit register, we can see that we get that the user already exists, and we get this other error that the password fields didn't match. So yeah, the errors are working really nice, and I think we can now go ahead and create a new user. So user, we were using test one. Okay, sample.com, test one as the password. Okay. Okay, so now as you can see, also Django has like a lot of password security validations here. So basically what we can do is just add a, now I'm gonna, yeah, add the password. Okay, I'm using another password just because I don't want to forget these passwords. I'm gonna hit register, and now we get the new user. We didn't got any errors Basically, we are not doing anything because we are not adding any redirect after this. So the idea it is to log in actually and redirect to the question page. So uh, yeah, we are gonna do that later, but for now we're just trying to first to log in into our admin and go to the users, and here we can see our test one user that we just created, and we don't have this check for the staff status, so basically we don't have access to the admin panel as this user. So yeah, very much we can create questions on behalf of this user, and yeah, that's pretty cool. Now let's see how we can log in really quick here and how we can redirect also to the questions page, and also um, you guys are going to see how this menu change as well. So for this it is also simple because Django does this for us. So we need to import a login function from Django contribution account add auth, uh, and we import the login method. So basically after we save our user, we use login, and here we pass the request as the first argument, and then we pass the user that we just created. And now let's just use redirect. So redirect is a function from our shortcuts here. So we use redirect, and here we just pass a page name. It could be our question page, or in this case we're going to use our index page. So let's just go ahead and create second user. Okay, so now let's hit register. Okay, it is similar to the email address. I guess I cannot use example. I'm gonna use coding venue. Hit register again. Now as you can see we get to the home page. Now we get this other menu when we are logged in. I guess we won't have access to this, so yeah, it says that you are not authorized to use this page. Yeah, really cool stuff. So now let's work on the login page and also the logout page. Okay guys, so let's just start by creating a new file for the login page. So we're going to call this login.html. Okay, so now we can close this for now. Let's also create the new view for this. So we define a new login page, here the request, and now we can return, okay, the return the new template. So we pass the request, the template name, it is login.html, and we also need to pass the context. Okay, so let's just go ahead and create the context. In this case it's just an empty object here, and now we can go to the URLs. So inside the app URLs, let's just define a new path. So in this case we're going to name this path to be login. The new page or the view, it is login page, and the name, it is going to be login. We save this and we should be able to access now to this page. So let's just go ahead into the navbar, and inside here we can add now this URL in the menu. The name here, it is going to be login. Okay, we can close this navbar. Okay, now let's just refresh this page. We don't get any errors. Okay, so one thing here is that, okay, I need to access first to this other user so I can log out, because at the moment I can, because I'm using this other user and we haven't add the functionality to log out. So yeah, I'm gonna log in here first and then log out again. I think we should be able to see now this menu. Okay, so now we hit login, we see a blank page, and that is because we haven't add anything in this login template. So for this, basically we can just copy paste some of these examples here. Okay, here we can name this login. We also name this login page, and here login form. Okay, for the form, I think we can comment this for now because we are gonna do that with this. We're gonna use a different form for this. Okay, but now we can see here that we get this login page on the browser, so that's pretty cool. Okay guys, so now let's work on the form for this login, and we do that inside the forms.py, and in here we are going to do something similar here as we did for the register form. Basically we have an authentication form from Django as well. We're going to define a new form here. So this is going to be called login form, and we pass here the authentication form. Okay, and here we have a class meta. Basically for the fields we are going to use all of the fields because basically we want to validate everything. One thing to know is the authentication form only has the username field and the password field, and that's pretty much all we have for this, and it should work just fine. So we use all here. We don't need to pass any models here because we're not saving anything, so we just pass here the fields, and with this we should be able to see now the form if we add this into the view. So let's go to views, and here in the login, okay, we can also bring the new login form that we just created. So from here we are just going to define a new form of type login form. Okay, and we should be able to pass the form inside the context. Okay, form. Now we save this, and inside the login here, inside the login template, we can remove the comments. Basically, we can reuse the username. Okay, so here we can use the username because we have a field for the username. We also have one for the password, but in this case we don't use password one, we just use password. Here password for the errors, and for the field we use password. We can remove the password too. And now for the non-field errors, this is we leave this just as it is because these are the errors, for example, when the user does not exist or something like that. Now for the submit, here the value it is login now, and let me see. I think that's pretty much it. We leave the method to be post and the action to be the same view because we're going to make the logic inside this view here. So let's just refresh, and now we see the login very similar to the register, and later we just need to add some CSS styles in here, but for now let's just work on validating the form and see if the user exists and log in. Okay, so for that we do that in the views in the login page. Okay, basically we said that if the request, the method that we are receiving, it is equals to post. Okay, we want to validate the form. We add that into a try catch, same as we did here with the register form. We can print the error in case that we get any errors. For the form, it's going to be really similar, so we use form, it is equals to new login form, but here instead of passing the post here on the first argument, we need to add the data, and here we pass the request.post. Okay, and now here we do a same validation if the form is valid. Okay, now we can log in the user. So if you remember here, to log in we need to pass an user instance. So a good thing with this is that our form, our login form, remember, we go to the form, sorry. Here we are setting this main class as the authentication form. Okay, so that gives us a user. So basically we can set user is equals to the form, and here we have this function to get the user. Okay, this is all from Django, so that's pretty cool. Okay, so now let's just use the same login function. We pass the request and the user that we just get from this form, and now we can return redirect, and here we're going to the home page as well. Okay, so now let's just save this, refresh the page, nothing changed, but now I believe we can log in. So now let's just try to refresh here, and let's just try to first see the errors for this. We are going to type the wrong credentials. Here I'm gonna type just a random password to see how we get these non-error fields. So let's just hit login, and it says that we entered the correct username and password. We need to enter the correct username and password. So yeah, basically this is the error that Django throws us. So now let's just go ahead and try to log in with the right credentials. So we're going to hit login, and as you can see, now we are in the home page with this menu for the login user. I believe we should be able to see also the admin page. I'm not sure. Yeah, we are. So yeah, that's pretty much all we need to do for the login. Let's just log out so we can see the login page here. So let's now work on some CSS, some CSS for this. So we can go to the styles, and if you remember here on the register page, we added this minimum width and max width. So basically we add this so this doesn't look on the full width of the page. So we can do the same for the login. Remember that here we have a login page, so we can just type the login page in here. We can refresh. Basically we now have this result, and it should be working just fine. Okay, so now let's go and work in the logout functionality for this. We can close now the styles and the login page, and the way that we are going to do the logout is going to be using a page that basically it will execute the logout functionality. So we are going to create a new view here. So basically here we define a new view, and we are going to call this logout page. We receive also a request here, and here basically we are going to execute the logout. So let's just go ahead and use a function that Django has by default, that it is called logout, and it's really simple. Basically here we need to call this function and only receive an argument. In this case it is our request, and here it will detect the current authenticated user. So now after the logout, basically we are going to redirect to in this case the login page. So now we need to add this also page or view, sorry, into the URLs. So inside the URLs of the app, we define a new logout, and here the logout, and the name, of course, it is going to be logout. We can close the URLs, and now we should be able to log out every time we access to the logout page. So Let me just go ahead and log in really quick. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to test this logout here. So now in the navbar, basically now we can add this logout inside here. Okay, and if everything is okay, it should redirect to the login page every time we hit the logout. So let's just do that, see if this is working. So let's just refresh and hit logout. Okay, so this is okay. I'm missing one required position. Okay, so I guess we need to pass here. Okay, I'm passing the login. This is logout. Okay, sorry for that. Let's just go ahead and try this again. So now here, let's just hit logout. And now we are on the login page. And as you can see now, we are not, we are on the not authenticated menu. And yeah, this is pretty much all we need. I'm gonna refresh so we can see that it is actually working fine. Okay, so one extra step that I wanna do with this logout page is basically only allow to access this page if we are an authenticated user. So for this, we're going to use some decorators from Django as well that basically allow us to do that. So this is inside the auth decorators, and here we can import the login required. This same decorator is the one that we are going to use in order to ask questions or to access to the ask question page. And yeah, basically we just use login required here, and we add that on top of the logout function. And inside here we have the login URL that we can pass, and in this case it is the name of the register page. So basically, if we are not login, we're not an authenticated user, we're going to the register page. So let's just go ahead and test that. So if we type logout here, we are now in the register page. So yeah, this is pretty much all we need. Basically, I think we have the authentication system working just fine. So now the next thing I think will be to work on asking questions. And yeah, okay, so let's just go ahead and create the new page for the new question. Okay, so for this we use inside the templates we add the new question.html page, and inside here we can just basically go to the register maybe and copy and paste the same structure here. The title will be new question. Okay, so we also change this new question page, the class for the page, the form, new question form, and I think let me just go ahead and comment pretty much all of the fields. We just leave the submit. We're going to come back in a second with this because we're gonna need to create a new form for this. So now we have the template here created, and let's just go ahead and create a new view for this. So new question page, here the request, and we return render, and we pass the request, the template name that is going to be new question.html, and of course the context. Now we can basically create the context for now empty. Okay, and let's just go ahead and add this login required. So because this is an action that only authenticated users can do, so we add the decorator for the login required for the page. Now we save this, and inside the URLs we can add the new question page. So we said new question. This is the new question page, and the name is going to be new question. Okay, so now I'm gonna move this to below the home page. All right, so now we should be able to see it. Well, in this case we won't be able to see it because we need to be logged in order to do that. So let's just go ahead into the login page and try to log in. So we use our super admin user. Now ask question. Okay, so I forgot to add the link for the new page. So inside the navbar, now we will have basically all the URLs that we need in this project. So new question is the name. You can refresh and tap inside the new page here. So this is pretty cool. I think now we can go ahead and start working in the form. The form is actually going to be simple. So this is inside the forms, and now let's just go ahead and add the new form. So basically we need to define a new question form. And here remember that before we were using already forms already created in Django. In this case we are gonna use forms from Django forms model form. So basically this will allow us to inject a model inside the meta inside here. Okay, so we define the class meta and we pass the model, and in this case because this is a question we need to import that model as well. So we use basically from that models, right? We import the question model. So we pass that inside the model here. Now for the fields, we have a bunch of fields, or not a bunch of fields, but we need to specify which fields are we going to verify. In this case, we want the title and the body. We don't want the created at or updated at or the author. So we pass here the title, then we add a comma in the body as well. That's pretty cool. Now later we're going to add some widgets for the title, but for now let's just see how this looks. We can go to now views, all right, and we can import that form. So in this case it is new question form. Now that we have it, we can render that in the page. So we use form and we declare the new question form and we pass that inside here. So we can just do the same as we did with the other views. We pass the form in the context. Okay, now if you refresh we won't be able to see anything because we haven't added any fields. So let's just go to the new question and here we comment everything. So let's just remove the comments. Okay, new question form here. Remember that we are only using two fields, so one of them is the title. Okay, so basically we replace the email for title. Here the label will be title. Okay, and now we have the body and we change body here, and we can also change the label. Now the passwords, we don't need anything this, and here we are not adding any extra verifications for asking a question, so I think we can just remove this and we will be okay. So now we save this, and if we try to refresh here, okay, we get an error. See what exactly the error is. Okay, it says, okay, yeah, I forgot a syntax error. See, is that inside the forms? Okay, here I need to add double column thing. So let's refresh, and now we see this this new form here. Very nice. So one thing that I would like to do is to add some placeholders. In this case, I'm gonna add the placeholder for the title. So now that we are inside the form here, let's just do that. So same thing as we did here. Remember, we use widgets, the name of the field that we want, in this case the title, and the title, it is a text input, so we use forms text input. Okay, and inside here we have the attributes, and we are going to change the autofocus be true. So autofocus true. Okay, and the placeholder. So in this case, we're gonna use how to create a Q&A website. Django. Yeah, really simple. So let's just refresh again, and we get the placeholder and autofocus on the title. Pretty nice. Okay, I would like to go ahead and add the minimum width for this form as well. So inside the styles, here we navigate to our page here. We can basically add the new question page. I believe this is how we call it. Let me just check that. Yeah, new question page. Okay, we refresh, and now we see the same format as the login and register. So now if we submit, nothing is gonna happen because we need to add that in the view. So I think for the forms we can close it for now. I think the template as well, we don't need anything from here. And let's work here for the post method. So we check if the request method is a post request. Okay, use the try catch as well. Okay, I don't know why I did this. Let's just print any errors that we get, and for this is going to be really similar. So we use form equals to new question form. Here we pass the data from the post request. Okay, now we got the form. We need to validate this, so we use if form is valid. Pretty much we are gonna create it. So pay attention to this. Here we are gonna do something a little bit different. So first we need to get the question that the form makes for us. So we use form.save. Okay, remember that we did something similar for the register here. Now we don't want to submit this form immediately, and the reason for that it is because we go to the models, we see that we have or we need an author, and the form doesn't do that for us. So basically we need to pass that. So in order to do that, basically we have a commit here that we can set to false in order to avoid saving immediately on the database. So basically we add the commit there, and now we can pass the author. So we said question the author equals to the request the user. So yeah, we can access the request the user from here, and now we can save this question. Very simple, right? So now with this we can have the question, we can redirect to the page of the question, but because we don't have that at the moment, I'm gonna leave it like this and just check in the admin if it is actually working. So now let's just save this. We can refresh the page, get the last changes, and also let's just try to log in into our account. Okay, now here let's just go to Stack Overflow. Let's just copy a question from here. So we browse questions. I use this one. Okay, we paste that in the title. just paste all of this in the body. Okay, we got our question with the body here. Now we submit. Basically, remember, nothing is gonna happen because we redirect. Oh, actually, we didn't add any redirect, so we stay on the same page. Okay, basically, we're doing that. So now let's just go ahead into the questions, and now we get to see the new question that we just created inside here. The author, okay, the title, the body, some pretty simple stuff. Now let's just go ahead and log out and also try to log in as one of the other users and see if it is actually working. So we see login. Okay, I'm gonna ask a new question, and let me see if I have the stack. No, I need to open again the Stack Overflow. Okay, Stack Overflow. Pause a new question. So let's just use this one. Okay, copy, paste. Okay, copy, paste. Now let's hit submit. Okay, we don't get any errors, so that's cool. So now I think we'll need to log in from here again. Okay. Okay, now let's just go to questions. And as you can see here, we got the question that we just asked. If we enter here, we get the author to be test1. And yeah, that's pretty much all we need to do to ask a question. Now I would like to go ahead and work here on these pages, individual pages for the questions. So as you can see, we get errors because we haven't added anything inside the question page here. So we are going to do that, and inside here we are going to do the last steps, that it is going to be creating like responding to the question, and also adding like the comment thread. That it is pretty cool. So yeah, let's work on that next. So now let's just to start, let's just go ahead and be on the home page. Okay, and now we can, in the templates, go ahead and create the new page for the question. So we're gonna call this question.html, and inside here I think we can also go ahead and copy this same structure. Okay, now this will be our question page. We are just changing names here. Okay, for the title, let's just remove that. Now at the moment we are not going to use any forms, so let's just remove that as well. And we can close this, and inside the return we can now add that. So we use render or request or template that we just created, question.html, and a context. Okay, context equals to nothing at the moment, so let's just refresh. Let's just go ahead and open a new question. As you can see now, we don't get any errors, and that's really cool. So now in order to get the actual question, remember here we have an ID. Okay, this ID is the one that we're going to use to get the new question. Let's use that. Here we are going to define the new question, and let's just go ahead and do question. This is a query, of course, question objects get, and we use the ID. Right, this ID. Now we should be able to render something inside this. So we pass the question in the context. Really simple. Okay, now let's go ahead and open the question HTML, and for now we are going to pass just the title of the question to see if this is actually working. So we refresh, we open a new question, we say the title here. We can do the same thing for everything. Yeah, we're going to change a couple of things here with this structure because it's a little bit different, but yeah, cool. Now Here, instead of using h1, we're gonna use h2, and here the class is not gonna be title anymore. So in this case, we're gonna add a new class style. It is question title. We're gonna use a p for the body, and we're gonna name this question body. Here we pass the question that body. Okay, and we also going to print the author. So we use question author, right? We add the author key. Okay, inside this we pass the question author that username. Okay, we get access to that because we have a relationship. So yeah, let's just go ahead and open this first question. We get the title here, the question, and the author. Pretty cool. So now let me see. Yeah, so now next thing will be to add our response form for this, and at the moment we don't have the form, but let's just use a basic structure for now. So for this we're going to check if we are authenticated. So the reason for that is because we want to only allow responses from authenticated users. Okay, so if we are authenticated, we display this form. So and okay, and if cool, we add the form, the method is going to be post, the action is going to be on the same page. Okay, and we are going to add a class for this. I'm gonna call this response.form or dash form. Okay, we can close the form, also remove some space there, and we are also going to add the token for this, so we can copy and that from any other form and refresh, and basically we don't see anything yet, but yeah, we are going to work on that next. Now let's go ahead into our forms file, and inside here, because we want to add a form for the response, we need to import our response model. So we use response. Okay, now we declare a new response form, so we use class new response form. Here it is forms.model model form. Okay, and now we add the class meta, and the model it is going to be response. Now for the fields, here we only care about the body. Okay, now we go to models, we get the body that it is going to be the response itself. Now the user question parent, this is all relationships, so we're going to do or add this when we submit the form inside the view, of course. So now we got the new response form. We can close forms for now. We can go to views and we just import a new response form. So response form. Now in our question page here, we can call our response form. We create a new response form. Okay, now we got the form there, and we also need to pass the response form in the context as well. So the key, it is going to be response form, and the response form, the one that we just added there. So now inside our question HTML, we can go ahead and create a new form for this. So I want to copy like a reference for this. I'm gonna use the field wrapper from our previous forms. So copy and paste that here. So now let's just use here this case our body. Remember that we use only body for the field and any errors that we might get. Actually, I think the errors are not really required. There isn't that much, and we need to verify here, so we can just remove it to keep it really simple. So now here, instead of this label, we use your answer. Okay, and if we didn't do anything wrong, we should be able to see the form there. Okay, now we don't see the form. Let me just check. Okay, yeah, the reason is because we're using the form key and we need to use response instead of form. Okay, and here we use response form. Okay, now let's just refresh, and now we see here our new field. Let's just go ahead and add the input field. So now let's just use input, type submit. Our value is going to be sent, and our class is going to be submit button, I believe. So now we save, we refresh, and we get this button here. Okay guys, so now let's work on submitting this form to add responses. So because this is something inside the question page, so that logic we do it inside the question page here in the views. So basically we said if the request that method is equals to post, right? Okay, so we're going to use try except from here. We print the error in case that we get one. All right, and this is our new response form. So basically we want to send a new response, so we use response form is equals to new response form, and we pass here the data from our post. Okay, same thing, we do a validation of this data. Response form is valid. Okay, now we submit the form, but we don't want to submit right away. Similar as we did here in the new question page, we need to pass some relationships to this response. So we said response is equals to the response form dot save, but we add the commit equals to be false. Now we got the new response created here, and we can pass a couple of things. Okay, let's check the model. We get a user, so we need to pass a user. And now we use response the user is equals to the request the user. So that's really simple. And we also need to pass here the question itself. So because we only have here the ID of the question, we can do two things. First, we can fetch the question, or we can just pass the ID. So for that we use the response questions equals to the question model. So here we use the question model. It needs to be uppercase. So it is our question model. So this question, it is coming from models. Okay, now here in the page, and here we pass the ID. So we use ID is equals to the ID. Basically we're making a relationship to the ID. So the ID is the question here. Remember, question with the ID of 5 in this case, right? And now we can save this response.save. Now we don't need to pass the parent because this is just a response. So this is going to the start of the comment thread every time we send a response here. So we can save this. Okay, and now we are going to redirect. So basically we're going to redirect to our question. Remember now, not remember, but take a look that now here we are not using the name of the page. We are going to pass the path here, and the reason for that is because sometimes you can have like a long thread of comments, and one thing that I want to do here is to go to that comment, to that specific comment, to know that we actually posted, instead of go and look for the comment. So for that we use question slash I think we can close this. We use str the id. All right, so that's because we want to go to this same page, and we add plus, right? And here we add this symbol that represents basically, or that it will allow us to go to like a container or a div with this ID uh, inside this page. So we use the response.id. Okay, we can close this. Basically, later we are going to have an ID for each response. So basically, it will allow us to go directly to that response, if that makes sense at all. But let's just make sure that this is okay. And it seems okay. Let's see if we don't get any errors. Let's refresh. Okay, and let's just add an answer. So let's say full answer. Okay, just something really stupid, but we're gonna send this. So we hit send. As you can see here, we have now that we are going to the response with the ID of 5. So right now we don't see anything here because we're not rendering any responses, but if we go to the response tab here, we get this new cool answer. And the question, remember, it is this align content properly. You can see it matches perfectly the body, so this is the response. So now let's just go ahead and start printing the responses so we can see at least some updates here on the question page. So for that, I think we can close the models for now, and we can open the questions, and we're going to do that here in the middle. So for the responses, we're going to have a container that we're going to add a responses container class. Okay, we can close now this here. And basically, I'm gonna add just a quick title here to know that these are the responses. So responses container heading. Okay, and now this is going to have the responses title. Now for the questions, for the responses, we need to first check if we have any response at all. So we use if. Okay, we need to use a tag from Django. If not question responses all. So that means if we don't have any questions, we want to print something, so we're going to use class. In this case, no responses text, I guess. And here the label is going to say no responses yet. We can close this p, and now we use the else. So in the case that we get or we have any responses on this, we want to print the responses, but I want to close first the end if, save this and refresh if we don't have any errors. So here we get that we don't have any responses yet. And let me see, why is this? Okay, if not question, all right, responses all. Okay, yeah, so I completely forgot about this. But in order for us to access this key, the responses, okay, in the models, in the relationship here of response and question, we need to add a name inside this to make sure that the response is it is a related name. So we basically, okay, let me just come back here and add the responses on C. Okay, so now with this, basically we will have access to the responses key inside a question instance of the model. So basically that means that we can do this question responses all, So we can refresh, and now you can see we don't have these no responses yet text, because actually we have a response that we just added there. We can go to questions and open one with no responses, and we get the text here. We can now come back in here and see that. So now for this for the responses here, I want to get basically all of the parent responses, and you will see later why we want to do that, because basically we're going to use a container or a component actually that we are going to re-render every time for the comments. So I know it doesn't make that much sense, but let's just go ahead and do that. So first thing that I want to do is inside the models, and inside the question I want to create a new question, a new function, and this function will be we will be able to access that function from here. And the new function, it is going to be called get responses. All right, so inside the responses I want to use self, and I want to return self.responses, and I want to use the filter, and I want the parent to be none. Okay, so we are going to fetch all of the responses for this question, but with the parent to be none. So I'm gonna save this. I want to come back here in the question template and basically use a for loop for this. So use for response. Okay, this is a new variable that we create. We use question, and here we use the new function get responses. So we use and for, okay, and here is where I want to create a new component for the response itself. So for this we're going to add here in the templates a new folder called components, and I want to create a new file called response.html, and for now I'm just gonna print, I don't know, I'm gonna print hello. Okay, we will come back in a second for the response, but for now we want to include something for each response. All right, so you use the include. All right, we go to components. Remember, this is the path that we added the response. Use response.html, and here I need to pass a new variable. So for this I need to pass the response to actually render something in there. I'm going to use with response is equals to the response. Okay, so this is going to be the key that will allow us to render something inside here. So response is equals to this response. Okay, now we can close this, save it, and we can check now. We get this stupid hello because we added the hello inside here. So for that, let's just go ahead and print the response dot body. I think that's what yeah, the key, the body. So now we have access to the response because we pass this response equals to response. So now we get the cool answer body. It is this one over here. So now let's just go ahead and add some styles inside the response here. Okay, I'm gonna remove this for now. Okay, so we're gonna use block quote in order to render the comments. Okay, so here remember that we said that we were going to pass an ID for each comment. So here is where we do that. Use the response.id. Okay, we close the block quote. So for the body, I want to add a new p with the class of response body. All right, I want to pass the response body here, and now I want to also display the user that added this response. So I'm gonna use response author. Okay, and I want to say by response user username. Here applies the same thing. We have a relationship with the name of user. So we have access to the user model username key. And one thing that I want to do here is just go ahead and add the replay button. So we are going to first make sure that we are actually authenticated in order to replay. So if the user is authenticated, right? So we can close. Okay, let me just close that. And if cool, so now we are going to have a button here that later we're going to add some functionality with JavaScript to replay, but for now use this replay button. And this is going to be replay. So we only render this button if we are authenticated. Can refresh. As you can see, it looks super weird, but the replay button shouldn't be there if we are not authenticated, as you can see. So pretty cool stuff. Now this is the part where we are going to create the actual thread of comments. So everything is going to start first with the parent, and we are going to create that from here. So in order to do that, basically we are going to re-render this block quote in case that we have a response and or actual a comment of this response. And as you can see here, we're going to do that with the parent. So first thing to do here is add a new function that will that we will be able to access that from here. All right, the response itself. So use def. Here we pass the get responses as well, and in here we return a new response. So we're gonna do objects filter, and we want the filter for the responses that the parent it is equals to self. So basically all the comments for this response. And now that we each response is going to have this get responses, and this is how the thread works. Actually, it's really simple, but sometimes it's a little bit hard to understand that. But anyways, we're going to create a new block quote inside here, and no, not actually a block quote. We're going to first add a for loop. All right, so we said for we're going to call this children, and we are going to get the response that get responses. All right, and with this we will be able to get the child response. So hope this makes sense. But yeah, we close the end for. All right, and now here we basically include the same component. We re-render the same response. So we use the include. All right, now we use components, right? We include the response.html, so this same component, and we pass also the key with response is equals to the children. So we can save this, we refresh, and now we don't see anything yet. But now if in case that we have a response of this comment, this block quote will add below this or inside this, and it will add the paddings and make the comment thread look nice. So let's just go ahead and add a new response here from the admin. In this case, from test one question, it is going to be aligned properly. I think it is that one. Now we will have access to the parent. Now the parent is the school answer that we added, and the body is going to be said nice. So we save this. Okay, now we got a new comment back with the parent, and now we see this nice comment over here. We can go ahead and add another one. This is from test2, and the parent is going to be nice. So now it's going to be a comment of this comment. That makes sense. Let's say awesome. So let's just save that. And yeah, pretty much this is all we need to do. So just go ahead and add a new response path for this cool answer. Let's just add this is from test1 and from answer and say cool comment. Okay. So now we can see the cool comment being added here in the right position. Pretty cool. So now I think the next thing will be to work a little bit on the design of these things. Okay. And then work on this reply, because basically we are going to need to add a new form here in order to reply to each comment here. So yeah, let's see how we can do that. Okay guys, so let's work on the styles first for the title and the body here, the author. So I believe we can close this response for now. Models as well. I think yeah, we're gonna work first here on the title. So we just copy the class here and go to styles, and we can start adding those, I think, here. So for the title, all right, we're gonna use a font weight of 900, and I'm gonna add some margins. So I'm gonna use 20 pixels on the top, auto 0 auto, and that. Let's see how that looks. Okay, this is how we display now the questions. For the body, you just copy that and paste that in here. And for this, I just want to add a margin button of I believe 6 pixels. Okay, and now for the author, we copy and paste that here. And here I'm gonna use font size of 14 pixels, and I want to use color of light gray. Okay, so we refresh now. I think I need to save this first, and we refresh now, and we see now how this looks. Perfect. Now the next thing will be to work in this response container. So we can copy that and paste that here, and this is going to be we're going to add a border top, right, of 1 pixel, solid and light gray, to separate that from the question. And the margin top is going to be, okay, it is top, it is going to be 30 pixels. So let's just save that, and we get this result. Okay, let's go to questions and see. Okay, the next thing will be this no responses text. Let's just copy that. Okay, for this I just want to add a light gray color. So at the moment we don't see that text, but if we go to any other questions, we get this text over here. So perfect. Now let's go ahead and I think we can go to the response here. Okay, no, I think, okay, yeah, we are missing this response containers heading. Okay, so we add that here on top of the node responses, and for this basically I'm gonna use a color light gray as well. Let's just refresh and we can see the responses in here. Cool. Okay, let's go ahead and add some styles for this form, for the answer. So this is the response form. Okay, so basically for this we're gonna add a margin top, okay, of 20 pixels. Also we're going to add a border on the top. Okay, and this is going to be 1 pixel solid light gray, and also a padding, got some extra space there inside the content component. Sorry, so let's just refresh and we get this result. Nice. And I think we can start working a little bit on this on these comments or responses. So that's inside the components responses, and here we get a response body. So we can add that here in the order. Okay, so for the body, want to basically remove the margins, so margin 0. For the author, let me see, I'll copy and paste that. I want the color to be light gray, so color light gray, and I want the font style to be italic. Okay, it is style, no size. Okay, let's just refresh and we see this. Okay, so now let's work on this reply button. I don't know why it is down there, to be honest. Okay, yeah, it is because here I'm using small, so it should be on the same line. Perfect. So now let's work on this reply button. So that we'll do that here, and basically when I remove the background, so background color be transparent for now. I want to add or remove actually the border. Okay, note this, I want to remove paddings, and I also want the text transform to be lowercase, and I want the color to be the same as the author, so I'm gonna use light gray, and I want the cursor to be pointer. So let's just refresh. Okay, cool. Now we get this reply button here. Okay, so now let's just go ahead and fix a little bit the margins for the comments here. So we are gonna do that here on the top or on the block quote, and here the border left, we're going to add that, so 6 pixels, right, solid in light gray. The padding left is going to be 20 but 6 pixels, and the margin on the left is going to be 15 pixels. Let's refresh, and this is how the how we create a nice comment thread. So now I think we need to start working on the form for these reply buttons. So basically we're going to add a form like below the comment here, and with JavaScript we're going to hide that, and every time we hit click reply, sorry, we are going to be able to see the form in here. So yeah, let's work on this, and I think we can close the styles for now, and the question, because I think this is pretty much all we need to do for this page. The next thing will be inside this response. So yeah. Okay guys, so let's just go ahead and add our new form for the reply function. So we are going to add this into a block quote, and here I'm gonna pass an ID. So the ID of this is going to be reply form container. Okay, and we're also going to add the response.id on this in order to access them later on JavaScript. We are also going to add a new class for this, and the class is going to be reply form container, and we can close the block code now. Okay, so now inside this we are going to add the new form. So in this case, form, the method is going to be post. Okay, and the action, now the action is not gonna be on this on the same page, on this question page. So for the replace, we're gonna create later a new page for that, but in this case I'm just gonna add the replay / replay in this case that it is going to be our new page, but for now we just keep it like that. Then we add a new class we're going to call reply form. We close the form now, and inside here we can just start adding the new fields. So first thing is to add the token, so we add that here, and now we need to add some hidden fields in order to for example check which question we are trying to submit this response, and also the parent response. So in this question, in this case, sorry, we're going to add a new input of type hidden, right? And the name for this is going to be question, and the value now it is going to be question.id. So now we are at a new hidden input with the name now of parent. So the parent is basically the current response.id. Okay, we are able to access this question basically because remember this is an implementation inside the question page, and we can access to this question in case that you wonder about that. Cool. So now I think we can now add our body to respond to a question. So remember that in our views, let's just go to views here, we pass, okay, let me just move this here a little bit. We pass, let me see where we have that, is inside the question page. We have a response form, so we're gonna use the same one, and we're gonna use body. Okay, and now we use we're going to have two buttons, one to cancel this response, or this box to response, and an input to submit the replay. So we use input of, no, first it is button, sorry, of type button. We need to use this because if we don't do that, basically we're going to submit the form and we don't want that. And we want to use the class of reply form cancel button, and I want to pass the label of cancel and close the button. Later we are going to add some click actions inside this button here, and also into the reply button here. But for now, let's just go ahead and add the new submit input type. Right, the class is going to be reply from submit button, and the value is going to be, in this case, reply. Let's just go ahead and see how this looks on the here on the view. So basically, as you can see, we have all of these forms on each one, but one thing that we're gonna do later with the CSS is to hide these forms, and when we click the reply button we show them. But for now, let's go ahead and create a new form basically. So I want to add a new form for these reply boxes here, because I want first to remove like the amount of breaklines that we have for the form, and I also want to add some placeholders on these boxes. Okay, so let's go to forms, and basically we can copy and paste the response form. Okay, let me see. Okay, now in this, instead of response, we're gonna use new reply form. We keep the model form here. The model is gonna be the same and the fields the same. Now I'm gonna add widgets. Okay, I don't know why that happened. Okay, now body, and this is for forms. This is a text area, and here we also have attributes. And let me just go ahead and update the number of rows to be 2, and also update the placeholder. The placeholder is going to say, where are your thoughts? Cool, now we have the reply form here. Now we can close the forms, go to the views, and import a new form inside here. So new reply form, and inside the question page we're gonna call this reply form. I call this new reply form. Right, we initialize it here, and we pass this reply form in the context. Alright, so the key is gonna be reply form. Reply form is going to be the one that we just created. We can save this. Now inside the response, okay, we can access to that now. So here we're gonna use reply form body, and now we can see the new boxes or the new form for this. Pretty cool. Now I think it is time for us to work a little bit on the design of this. So yeah, let's work on that. Let's open the styles, and in here we're gonna go to the bottom of the page, and we are gonna start with this reply form container. Okay, so we're just going to add this in here, but later in JavaScript. Oh no, in JavaScript by default this is going to be displayed to be none, so we're gonna hide the form, but I want to see how it looks now on the styles, so we're just gonna leave that there initialize. I'm gonna add the enabled key that we're gonna pass later with JavaScript to actually display this. So basically, if you don't know what I'm doing, in JavaScript when we click the reply we're gonna add this key here. So basically when the key is there we display the form, but for now we're gonna keep it just simple. And I think we can do something here with the reply form, and we are gonna add a width of 100%. Okay, and now I wanna add some properties to this reply button. Okay, so you're gonna use a font weight of 600. The color that I want for this is orange. Okay, the background color transparent. Okay, the border none. Paddings that I have for this is 4 pixels and 12 pixels, and I want the cursor to be pointer. So let's see how this looks. Okay, so now we have this. Pretty cool. So let's go ahead and work on the submit button. Okay, so I think I can just copy and paste some properties here. And for this, couple of changes. I want the background color in this case to be white, and the color white and the background orange. Okay. I also want to add some border radius on this. I'm gonna use 4 pixels, and I want here and in the reply form I want the this to be below the actual text area here, so I'm gonna use text area. Let's refresh, and now we can see that we get this result. So now yeah, now let's work on some JavaScript. So I'm gonna first disable all of these this comments box. So now we can get this. Now let's go ahead and add our JavaScript. So I think we can close this, and inside our static here we can add a new folder called, I'm gonna call JS as JavaScript, and we are gonna add our new main.javascript. For now it's gonna be empty, but we're going to add this inside our page. So here we can use a script. We're gonna use the source to be basically. Okay, we use the same static, and in this case the route for this is main.js. Okay, and I want to also add this date after the path, and just in case that I get the same error as before, I'm gonna add that, and I'm gonna close this script. Okay, hopefully I don't get any errors. I think at first it's not going to quite work. Let me see, because I need to restore the server, but I think it's working. Guess that we get an error or something, I'm just gonna restart the server. But for now, I think the next thing will be to work. Let me just close this, and it will be to work on the on-click events for these buttons. Okay, so for the reply button, we're gonna have the on-click event. Okay, and this is going to be a handle reply button, and here we pass the response.id as the argument. Okay, and I also want the other one here on the cancel button, so we use an on-click event, and this is going to be handle cancel reply, and we pass also the response.id. Perfect. So now we can go ahead and create these functions in JavaScript, and this is the response.id that we get from both on-click events, right? Handle cancel, and here the response ID as well. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do here is to get the reply form container. So in this case, when we click this one, I want to get this container, and that's the reason why we pass the ID, because we want to get the container with this ID. So we do that here in JavaScript and say cons form container. We go to document, get element by ID, and in this case I pass the reply. Let me just go ahead and copy this. Okay, and in here I pass the response ID. Okay, now I say if we have this reply form container, what I want to do is just to change the class name of this form. So I'm gonna use this here. I'm gonna set container, okay, form container. I'm gonna pass the enable. Okay, and if you remember in our CSS, we pass here. Let me see where. Okay, replay form container. It is going to be enabled. Okay, so let's just close this and see if this button is actually working. So let's just refresh and hit. I don't know. Let's just test with this one. As you can see now, we see the reply section here. We can do the same with any of the other responses. So now it is time for us to work on this cancel, right? Because we want to hide it. So it's gonna be pretty much the same thing, but in this case I want to remove the enabled class. So we refresh, we hit reply, we cancel, we remove, we hide the comment box there. Yeah, this is pretty much all we need to do with JavaScript as well. Now the next thing will be to work on this reply function here. Yeah, this is pretty much just a page that we're gonna do. So let's go do that in the views, and in here we are gonna create a new view, right? It's gonna be a page in this case. So we're gonna define this as replay page. We receive a request. All right. Okay, so here we're gonna check only for the post request. So we do if request the method equals to post, right? We want to actually submit the form to the new response. So use a try catch here. we print in case any errors happen. And here the important part is to create a new reply form. So we use new reply form. Okay, and we pass the request post, and here we check as always if the form is valid. Okay, and if it is, basically we want to create a new reply or response. So reply is equals to form.save, and we don't want to commit, so we set this to false. Okay, and here a couple of things. We need the user, this one, so use request.user, right? And we also want the question, and we want the parent in this case. So remember that here we are passing two hidden values, the question and the parent. So we do that really simple here on the top. Maybe after the validation we use question ID, we get the request dot post, here use get, and we get the question. We use the name of the input to get the value. Okay, and we do the same for the parent ID, request dot post dot get, and we get the parent. Cool. So now let's just go ahead and add this relationship. So use question is equals to question, and here we pass the ID is equal to the question ID, and then let's also add the parent. So question parent is equals to the response, the parent ID. And let's just go ahead and, I don't know why I'm doing question, here is reply, and let's just save this. Okay, and the redirect is gonna be similar to the one that we do when we answer. Okay, the redirect is going to be in this case here is the question ID. Okay, so now here the question, and then we pass here our reply.id. Okay, we want to go to that response and the comment thread here, and this is pretty much to submit a new response or new comment, whatever you want to call it. Now for this I want to add also default action in case that this is not a post request. I want to redirect to the index. All right, I think this is okay here, and I also want to make sure that the one that it is submitting this form, it is actually an authenticated user. So we copy the login required decorator here, and the login URL is going to be registered as well. Now this is not quite going to work yet. We need to add this URL inside this URL patterns. So basically the URL for this, okay, it is reply, and here is the reply page, and the question is the name is reply. Okay, so now we can go ahead, I think, and test this in action. So I'm gonna add just a quick comment here on the nice response here. So we're just gonna add the word Django and here reply. Hopefully we don't get any errors. So let's just hit that. Okay, we got an error. It says response is not defined. Okay, see, I think I can close this. New reply form. We're making sure of this. Did we add this? I think we didn't. Okay, so let's just go ahead and add this response model, something that we forgot about that. So Let's just go ahead and add the comment again. I think we were adding this nice. So we just add Django. Okay. Expected a number but got 5. See if we are saving something like this. No. Let me check just this really quick. Okay guys, so I think the error here is because it didn't add the this string. We didn't add the value of the string, so we just need to add that, these double quotes. So okay, let's just add that. Here we remove it. Okay, so now let's just go ahead and try this again, and hopefully it is going to be working just fine. So let's just hit replay and go. So it should be in the nice thread here. So let's hit reply, and as you can see now we get to this URL, and now we get this Django. Let's just go ahead and also test in another question. Maybe I just go ahead and here and set cool. You just hit send, you get this cool. You just add another one there. Sorry. Okay, and let's just reply to sorry and say hello there. They reply, and now we see that this comment thread is working perfectly fine. Yeah, this is pretty much all we need to do to create a Q&A website with these thread comments. And yeah guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you had enjoyed the video, and if you did, subscribe and hit that like button. That would really help me a lot to grow the channel. Any questions that you guys have or any comments, let me know, and see you guys in the next one.